Welcome to week 7 of Dr. Stone, the show about the apocalypse that's filled with rock people or people who rock and science somehow is involved. So last week we had this kind of, I would say maybe like the mid-season finale of this core where we had Senku, who we thought was down. He got revived, and we've been getting kind of this flashback with Senku where he goes into what he was doing the first 6 months of when he woke up before Taiju woke up, and we kind of get to see more of how he was able to, jumpstart society from basically nothing to be able to get back up to where, close to where a tribal society would be. He was able to make a house and all these things, and we saw how he was able to figure out that nitol is what wakes people up. Even though he didn't have access to it, he was able to use nitric acid as kind of a substitute to get Taiju back up and running. And we saw how he was lonely. He put fear into the monkeys. Oh, those monkeys. And then we also got advancement of the plot, which is always good. So we saw Senku get revived, but he's like, he thinks I'm dead. Tsukasa, that is. He thinks I'm dead, so we might as well use that. So Yuzuriha and Taiju, you go back to him, and then you can act as my spies when I go find the other people who are sending us the smoke signal and try to work together with them to make an army of or weapons of science while he's busy doing his primitive thing. That was one development. Of course, we had this touching, goodbye scene between Taiju and Senku. And then, of course, we had the reveal of Kohaku, who's this... nobody knows if she's second generation or multiple generations down the line person who grew up in this stone world and has never seen the world before it. Somehow she speaks the same language. We'll just give that to suspension of disbelief. That's not really a problem. She tried to kill Tsukasa by pretending that she was a nice person. She seems to be fairly on the side of our gang rather than, the anarchist, primitivist gang that is Tsukasa's gang. So there's that, which is good. After that, what else to say? Not much else to say about that. So without further ado, let's get started with week 7. Oh, I forgot to mention that at the end of that last episode, Senku constructed this simple machine with 3 pulleys, and he was able to pull this log off of her where she was trapped under after she fought Tsukasa. And it was pretty cool. I always like physics stuff. Up till now, we've only gotten really chemistry stuff, so as a physics person, glad to see that. He also explained that it was made by Archimedes, and that it's like a simple machine to increase your, moment. Like when you pull down, it increases your force so you can pull something up. That's pretty cool too. And just all the little details of what he does in the show, where he blasts a hole in a chopped off piece of log using gunpowder. It's like you just build on top of what's been done before. And that's really, I think, the charm of the series is that you get this kind of, initially you get these small little steps that you don't really see adding up to anything, but as you move further and further along, they make bigger and bigger leaps because they're building on what they've already done. And really that's what science is as a whole. It's just really cool to see that. If you're a science head like me, it's just really cool. Yo, okay, so this is the first time that Senku's shown any personality at all since the beginning of the show. He's just been, talking to Taiju like he's some kind of normal person, like some kind of Professor X type, mentor type who's just talking down to you all the time. But since this Kohaku lady stumbled into the picture, this chemistry is off the charts, I don't really know where this dynamic is going to go in the future, but I'm just going to assume that she's going to be the waifu of the season. Personality-wise and also character design-wise, there's no chance that she's not, especially because this show is one of the most popular ones this season, so I'm just going to write it off as she's the most popular girl this season, and I'm glad that she's in the show because she brings some personality out of Senku finally, even though we're only 7 episodes in. Finally, he shows some signs of being a human. Okay, he did last episode too. I'm generalizing, but, it's a good thing to be connected to the main character once in a while. Senku! I'm loving this already. I did not think it would be progressing this fast. So he made basically a go-kart out of bamboo. And this is a very specific aesthetic. So people who like steampunk, they like that bronze with the cogs and everything powered by mechanical energy. And this is I don't know what this is. This is primitivist punk or tribal punk or something more weird than that, where everything is just made out of bamboo and wood. But they're still somehow able to do cool things. I'm predicting it now. I haven't read the manga, so I don't have like foresight or anything. I'm predicting it now. By the end of this, there's going to be a plane somehow involved, somehow. And I love primitive flying machines. All that stuff is so cool to me. So this show is just getting better and better week to week. Yo, couple things. So they're all wearing clothes that are not normal, like brown. So they must have some kind of dyeing technology. Clearly, they have enough technology to build houses. They have enough technology to build bridges, which is insane. They have a law and order kind of system because they said they have criminals that they banished. This is pretty insane for a primitive society. Like he said, there's probably a first generation science man. It's pretty cool that he's not the first because I don't like the chosen one type narrative trope. So him picking up the pieces of his own like couple of people that he knows is fine. But if he was the first one in the whole world, I would have been like, this would have been a completely different story. So I'm really glad they went with this angle, given that this is the first time we've seen any large gathering of humans outside of the three of our main protagonists. It's really cool that there exists a society already. He doesn't have to like just make one. He's not like first Prometheus type figure who's bringing technology to people who never had it before. These people already have some technology, but like like Senku speculated, the first generation science dude is probably gone now, and he or she didn't get a chance to teach their descendants anything about science. So these people are just making do on their own, and they might make some kind of scientific advancement, but like, they're not going to make anything significant, unlike Senku, who has full knowledge of what existed before. It's how he's able to make simple machines, vehicles, gunpowder, etc., etc. It's going to be really cool when they like just think something that he does is witchcraft. Oh my god. Okay, this show just got 500% better to me. Or should I say 10 billion times better? 10 billion% better. That's better. I just said it and it immediately happened. Oh, show. Okay. Oh, this show is so good. If you've ever had to study any high school chemistry of any type, I had to memorize all these colors for no particular reason, but this Senku's pulling this out, meaning like, this man's like, oh man, this man's on another level. I thought this was sorcery. They don't even have a word for science yet. And Senku's like, yeah, if you don't have a word for science, there's no chance you can, even keep pace with me. I made soap bubbles and got y'all freaked out, This should be fun. See, this is important because this is a philosophical victory for Senku. So even though I've been talking about like science and like how important it is that they have science in this village and everything, and how he's able to bring science to them because he remembers everything from the past, at the core of the whole show is still the philosophical battle between Senku and Tsukasa. Tsukasa's like, we don't need science. We just need like a society where people are all, well off and they all do fine. We don't need the adults who remember the old society. If we start over from scratch again, we could build a better one. But he forgets, of course, about human nature. And Senku, by discovering this kid Chrome, who like found all these like, physical phenomena from first principle, just by discovering things and being curious, this is a philosophical victory for him, because no matter what Tsukasa does, it's like there's going to be a kid like Chrome who just does stuff and finds a sulfur ball that makes electricity or whatever it is. You can't really stop that. What are you going to do? You're going to banish him from the village for being a sorcerer? You could actually do that. They did do that for about 500 years in between, the start of the new era and the year 2000. It was called the Dark Ages. So it's feasible that he could do that, but at the ultimate, for Senku, that's still a victory because human nature just means you're curious and you do stuff like this. So he's probably, through the roof hearing about this guy. Oh, Monster Hunter reference. Monster Hunter reference. Okay. I like this show this much before that. It was like down here after episode 6, just because it focused a lot on like interpersonal drama and like Taiju liking Yuzuriha. But since they found the new society, it's gone up to like here. And now that he's mentioned Monster Hunter, ooh, off the charts. Okay. Very, very, very simple person. I see Monster Hunter, I click like. She's sick, and they also have some kind of primitive religion. So she's a priestess of some kind. Is it like tuberculosis, some kind of cough that doesn't really go away over the years? Is it pneumonia? Is it something weird? I mean, we're going to see Senku figure this out. I don't know if it's this episode or the next, but bringing medicine to people who've never heard of medicine is probably the best way to endear yourselves to them. So definitely he's going to do that. This has got me right in the feels. So when he went through that montage of like showing all the planes and the cars and everything, it's like, yeah, it's to Senku, you know, what was lost is not just all of humanity, because they're all still there. They could all still be revived, you know, but they won't have any memory of what happened over the past who knows how long. They'll just all start fresh, as we've seen with these guys. But for him, it's like what's been lost is the sum, you know, sum total of all human knowledge. And for him, somebody who values science and like learning stuff and technology and the ability to just fashion your will into something that could be useful to people, for someone like him, that's a greater loss than, you know, all these years that have been lost because they all turned to stone. For him, that's like probably the worst thing that could possibly happen, and it just so happens that it's that one thing that happens. It's like if you woke up tomorrow and you don't remember literally anything that happened in your life, you'd feel a little bit of like loss because of all the things that you experienced that you can't even recall anymore. But what if no one remembered? What if it wasn't just you who forgot? And that's effectively what's happened, because as humans now, we have so much knowledge about so many things that it's basically impossible for one individual to know everything. Like all the particulars of even one thing is pretty much impossible for one person to know. That's why we as a species remember it. But if our collective memory is wiped out, we're not any like more special than the people who lived 2 million years ago in caves and made cave paintings or whatever. We're not advanced in any way. We've just had more time to remember all the things that we've done, so we can build off of what they did, you know, stand on the shoulders of giants and whatnot. So that really got to me, just because, you know, science boys. So that was episode 7 of Dr. Stone. Things have just gone to another level. And it's been going to another level of the past couple of episodes. Like, they split up. Some of them went back to Tsukasa, and Senku's done the most exciting thing and gone down the yellow brick road to what lies at the end of it, which is like this amazing village of people who were all here all along, and he just didn't know about it. And we get some kind of insight into their daily life. And they seem to have some technology, but not a lot. And there's only one guy who's able to do any kind of science, and he has to, you know, live outside the village because the people think it's sorcery, which is like the most perfect setting for someone like Senku to come into, who has like all this knowledge of stuff that's happened over 2 million years. And it just so happens that the person who they value most, a priestess, is sick with some kind of disease. And what's better for treating sickness than antibiotics? And that's what he's going to make in the next episode. Pretty sick. It's going to be penicillin, obviously, but pretty sick that he's, you know, that he's in this position in the first place, that there exist these people that he could help immediately. And third, that there's this like his student guy who now acts as our perspective viewpoint character, because he's going to explain everything to this kid, and that's how we learn about what he's going to do. Finally feel something for Senku over the past 2 to 3 episodes. The first 3 to 4 were sketch, but after they showed like him waking up in the first 6 months all alone, really started warming up to him after that. And then when he discovered this village, you know, his personality takes over with his dynamic with Kohaku, and also like his challenges with Chrome. We definitely see him as a character who's just obsessed with science, and he just really wants to show people what science can do. And that's really like his motivation. That's it. He wants to reconstruct science because he wants to push it forward. He doesn't want to just build it up from zero. And it's really cool that he even exists in the society, because without him, it'd be like Planet of the Apes all over again. We'd start over from nothing to eventually get back to somewhere else like millions of years later. It would take a long, long time. But with him, they can speed that up. You know, he said the guy made something from the 17th century, that static sulfur ball static electricity generator, which you've ever seen, like the Van de Graaff generator. This is like a super primitive version of that. They didn't even really understand back then what electricity even was. This show has gotten insanely good, and I think it's one of like a few kind of more shonen oriented shows in the past like decade, 5 years at least, which focus on a problem which was created and can't really be stopped, and you just deal with the after effects of it. Now, the 3 that I'm thinking of in particular are this, Promised Neverland, and Made in Abyss. Now, Made in Abyss is kind of the odd one out there, because it doesn't really focus on what made the Abyss, but there is a promise that at the end of the series we'll find out why the Abyss was made, where it came from, why there are all these prayer people in the Abyss. Same for Promised Neverland, which is much, much further along in its run. It's on its final arc. And if you've seen the anime and you can't wait for the next season, definitely go read the manga. I did. It was definitely worth it. Maybe wait for the whole series to be done, because I think there's only a few weeks left of the whole run. It's in its like 140s of the chapters count now. And that's much further along. And we already have an explanation for most things in that series because it's about to wrap up. But I feel like these shows that focus on more on like a situation that's already been created and then the protagonists just have to figure out how to fix it. I feel like this is the kind of new generation stuff that's coming out these days. Whereas, well, if you think about it, there are some shows in previous eras that also had this, but it was less about like this. All of them involve some kind of like huge disaster that's like taking people's lives. And the protagonists have to do something to fix it. Like in Promised Neverland, they have to figure out a way to escape. In Dr. Stone, literally the world has been reset to zero. It's like someone hit the reset button on the world. They have to figure that out. In Made in Abyss, they have to like find out how to get to the bottom of the Abyss to find out what it's about. Again, that's kind of a side plot in that mostly it's about the Abyss itself. But I just think it's an interesting trend that we're seeing in like more youth-oriented media, because you think that these kind of themes would be more apt for people who are more attuned to like societal kind of situations where you can kind of see what it reflects on in the art, whereas people who are younger maybe would like a more straightforward story, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So it's interesting to see that this is kind of either making its way down or making its way from the grassroots up. I love this kind of stuff. So for me, this is great that this kind of media is getting more attention. But it's good to see that Dr. Stone, it's keep like getting better and better. And it's a good thing that I didn't read the manga, because the anime is doing such a good job explaining everything to me that if I were to have read the manga, I would have missed out on this, or the experience I'm getting now of this. So extremely glad I started watching the show. This is probably my show of the season, and I know that's like the lame pick. Everybody says this is their show of the season, but I think it's really earned its place. Like, it's gotten to a point where if you're at all interested in science of any kind, you should just watch this show purely for the spectacle. Like, you learn about all these things that you just took for granted in your daily life, like soap, which he's making from first principle without any like pre-existing products. He has to just start from pure natural ingredients and make everything that he does in this show. So really interesting to see what other inventions we're going to see this season. This is definitely a 2-core show. It's extremely popular. Like, it's probably one of the most famous shows that's on right now, other than Demon Slayer, which is also extremely popular. And this is just going to take off. I think we're going to get many, many seasons of this. So be prepared to watch a lot more Dr. Stone if you haven't already. And if you give it like 5 episodes, because I think episode 5 is when it really kicked off for me, when we first got to see like Senku go back in the first 6 months. And that's really when it hit home for me. I wish they had put that in earlier, but I get it. They have to like pump up the action. That's why we saw the lion fight. That's why we saw them like meet Tsukasa, and the conflict is introduced very quickly before really even the concept of the series is able to, flesh itself out. But I'm willing to accept that if we get this kind of level of cool like society type stuff, and like there's a religion here, they think it's sorcery, the science that Senku does and everything, and all these ideas are just so interesting to me that I'll take those first 4 episodes being slightly subpar for me. I know many people enjoyed them, but for me the first 4 episodes were a bit below par. But since then it's really picked up, and I feel like the show's definitely worth watching at this point. And I don't think it matters whether you watch it weekly or binge it all at once. I like it watching it weekly because it gives me my little dose of first principle science every week, and I'll gladly take that. So that's it for week 7 of Dr. Stone. If you haven't been watching the show yet, definitely start now. It's a great show. Show of the season, maybe, possibly. It's kind of a slower season for shows that I like, but this is definitely in my wheelhouse. So that's it for week 7. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next episode.